Hello, my name is Helen O'Carroll and I'm the curator of Kerry County Museum, which is located in the Ashe Memorial Hall, just beside the town park in Tralee. For some time now, we've been thinking about how we can improve access to the building. And this isn't entirely straightforward because the Ashe Hall is a listed building, so any consideration of improvements must keep the historic fabric to the forefront. The place to start then is with the building's history and its location. And the interesting thing is that when you look at it this way, the issue of accessibility is at the heart of this story. Built in 1928 as the County Council headquarters and incorporating a dance hall, theatre, cinema, the Ashe Hall has always been a public building. Before that, though, the site on which it was built was very much a private space, open only to the elite. The Ashe Hall was built on what had once been part of the Denny domain, the Dennys being the main landowners in Tralee since the late 16th century. The domain became known as the Green after the bowling green which the Dennys laid out in the 18th century. And I've highlighted the domain, the extent of the domain there, part of the domain in green. It was surrounded, the bowling green was surrounded by a gravel walk where the sons and daughters of the well-to-do could eye each other up as they promenaded around it. And it retained the name long after the bowling green vanished. In the 19th century, the green was laid out in ornamental gardens and walks, but with controlled and restricted access for the people of the town. From the end of Denny Street across to Ballymullen, there was a promenade where entertainments were occasionally held, such as regimental bands from the barracks at Ballymullen or the band of the Royal Irish Constabulary. This was the public green. The interior, marked as the Castle Green on the first edition Ordnance Survey map, was restricted to those who had money. There were great hopes in the town that access to the green would be eased when the Denny estate was sold in 1891. The green was put on sale as a separate lot and the town commissioners wanted to buy it, but they lost out to Dr. Henry Clements Finnerty, who bought it for £12,000, double the asking price and the equivalent of about 1.5 million today. Finnerty had inherited a fortune from his mother's cousin, and so the green merely passed from one elite to the next, and access to it remained tightly controlled and open only to those who could afford to pay. But there was a bit of relaxation in 1904 when the Gaelic League were allowed to host a feis in the grounds during the summer. This was highly successful and it became an annual event for several years. It tapered off with the approach of World War I and the green remained the domain of the privileged few. Its enclosure and its long history as a private space contributed to the death of William McCarthy in the green in March 1921. McCarthy was an IRA intelligence officer who was arrested in Tralee on the 28th of March. He was taken to the RIC barracks and later that evening he was to be moved to the jail in Ballymullen. He was taken through the green and, according to the official version, he was shot while trying to escape, a version that nobody believed. The RIC defended the decision to take him through the green on the grounds that it would be quieter, with nobody promenading through it, and so the less likelihood of a rescue attempt. But the reality was that there he could be shot with impunity, with nobody to witness his death. But within a year, the green would be in public ownership. In March 1922, Finnerty's son, Henry Jr., sold it to Tralee Urban Council for £5,500, approximately €400,000 today. In July of that year, the Department of Local Government of the newly formed Irish Free State gave approval for the Urban Council to apply for a bank loan. All the established banks were approached, but none of them were willing to back the venture. The country was by now plunged into a bitter civil war, which was waged with ferocity in Kerry, and the banks were unwilling to take the risk. Into the breach stepped the National Land Bank, which had been set up by the Dáil in 1919 to continue to allow tenants to buy out their holdings. A 30-year loan was facilitated by J.J. McElligott, a native of Tralee and a 1916 veteran, who went on to become Secretary of the Department of Finance and later Governor of the Central Bank. Shortly after the purchase of the green, the decision was taken to rebuild the County Hall on a site in the green. The County Hall in Godfrey Place had been burned by the Black and Tans in 1920, and Kerry County Council received £40,000, roughly 2.6 million euro today, in compensation from the British government. But rather than rebuilding on the original site, the local authority chose to site the new building in the green, now no longer an enclosed private space for the privileged few, but a public town park open to all. When the Ashe Hall opened in 1928 as the seat of local government, it was a visible statement in stone of the transfer of power to the new independent state. Initially referred to as the County Hall, it was proposed to name the building the O'Connell Hall in memory of Daniel O'Connell. This proposal was defeated, however, and it was instead named after Thomas Ashe because, as the chairman of Kerry County Council remarked, it was men like Ashe who had made the hall possible. A theatre, dance hall, cinema was integral to the plans, and this was the first part of the building to open in 1928. You'll see it there outlined in pink. It was opened in first part of the building to open in May 1928 with an Irish Ireland concert, which is a mixture of parlour songs, Irish ballads, Irish dancing, and finished with a grand finale by the tenor Gerard Crofts of Thomas Ashe's poem, "Let Me Carry Your Cross for Ireland, Lord," which he said he had first heard from Ashe himself while both were in Dartmoor jail in 1916, and this was greeted with tumultuous applause. And with this rousing launch, the hall was well and truly on its way. The Ashe originally had two separate entrances serving two distinct functions. The northern entrance facing Denny Street was for the local authority headquarters and was accessed by a series of steps. The eastern entrance facing the park and all on the one level was for the hall itself, the theatre, dance hall, cinema, which occupied the central well of the building and which was replaced by the museum in 1991. The principal entry point to the museum was switched to the northern entrance with disabled access and the exit to the eastern entrance. So what we're considering or thinking about now is whether we could reinstate the eastern entrance as the principal entry point to the museum for everyone. We might have to make some changes to the internal layout, but it is worth considering because it would mean that we could provide access to more people than ever before in the building's history, and the Ashe Hall could continue to play a central role in the civic and cultural life of the town and county for another century. Thank you.